And we are recording. I have 6:32.
Okay, great. Let's call the meeting to order at that time. Let's call the roll.
Member Hinsey?
Excuse me, sorry, I wasn't used to being called first. Present.
Present. Member Yankee?
Present.
Member Yankee present. Member Highland?
Present.
Member Highland present. Member Schmidt? Not present. Member LaHood?
Present.
Member LaHood present. Member Wong?
Present.
Member Wong present. Chair Hood? Chair Wolf, sorry.
Present.
Chair Wolf? Chair Wolf present. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
Shall I read the preamble?
Yes, please do.
All right. Remote access to information and participation. In accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order Number N3320, declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak, and Mayor London N. Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25th, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health officer, aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via teleconference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made a part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process.
Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Hey,
Should we ask about agenda changes just to confirm?
yes, any changes or adjustments to the agenda at this time. If you can't have any agenda changes because it's a special meeting, all items on the agenda must remain on the agenda. We cannot add any items. Okay, let's call the first item.
Item number 2, file number 21001. Determine how to comply with the Sunshine request, what information to disclose, and whether to disclose legal advice.
Okay, so I'll kind of give a little background on this. The Sunshine Task Force received a public records request, and it was regarding the suspension, I guess you can call it, of our regular memos that get attached to each of our files or cases, and had been going back to the beginning of this task force in 1999, 2000. And in March, we had received notice that that task or that service would be suspended by our legal counsel. There was a request that came in from a member of the public, and it was let's hold that off. We can discuss whether we're just giving you the background. I received a public.
Where are you?
Hello? Somebody interrupting me for a reason? No?
It sounds like Cheryl might be talking to somebody.
Okay.
Like
so there was a request for the original.
All right.
Cheryl, can you put yourself on mute, please?
I have to put myself on mute.
Thank you. There was a request. I'll repeat it again. There was a request for public documents relating to this issue for the memo, the message or the document, the record about the stoppage or the suspension of these memos. Because of the who was being asked for this and what it was about, we had consulted with legal counsel and about what should or could be released under this, because it wasn't quite clear. And we were told that it is protected on the actual message. The notice that came to us was actually protected by attorney-client privilege. So the decision, if it was going to be claimed as such, the decision to whether to release that and any of the other related documents that were in the request would be with the task force to waive the attorney-client privilege, and that's why we're meeting here today. So if there are any questions about that, we should, the idea here is to have a discussion and to take action.
Just to clarify, I guess this item that this member of the public was seeking, is that a communication between us and the people who were going to suspend our memos, and so we're getting advice that that particular communication is attorney-client privilege?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's no secret that these memos that we get on a regular, or had been getting on a regular basis, were being provided by our legal counsel.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and so this is not a necessarily supposed to be a service of the quote-unquote office of the city attorney or the city attorney's office per se. We're assigned an attorney to provide us with advice by the city attorney's office, and those memos are the advice that we get and have been getting by precedent without fail for all that time up until March of this past year. So, we're not debating the issue of the memo itself. The discussion here for today is whether to release the records that are in the request itself, and to waive attorney-client privilege to do that.
Sorry to jump in late.
I'll recognize, hold on a second, recognize member Schmidt arriving at 6:42 p.m.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dean Schmidt. I came in late here, but it sounds like it comes down to the actual memos that are from the city attorney's office to the task force, and whether those should be disclosed and whether there should be a waiver. That's the issue? No,
the issue is there was a communication from our legal counsel all right, the one that was assigned to us, the person.
Yeah.
And that that memo is, or that, I should say, that message is being requested by a member of the public. And so when we got this request, which included all information, communications regarding this issue, including this notice from all task force members and from the administrator. And it was also addressed separately to myself. When a question was brought up to our legal counsel as to what of this request is disclosable, the response was that it's not, because it's considered attorney-client privilege. It's considered advice, legal advice. And so it's up to us whether we want to waive attorney-client privilege to release the requested records.
My next question would be, was there any discussion with the city attorney's office about the idea of the waiver itself, about waiving?
What do you, I'm not following the question.
Well, a waiver it's an act to take a privilege and to say that there's a, waiver is happening. There's consent to waiver. In other words, has anyone been told by the city attorney's office what the guidelines are on waiving attorney-client privilege?
No.
Okay.
I don't think we've been provided, except that it's at a decision of the task force whether to waive privilege or not.
Well, I think that
just be specific. Be specific.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you, Chairman. That we know that it's our decision to make. Do you have authority for that? That's a decision that the task force can make.
I don't understand how.
Can I chime in here?
Why wouldn't we have? Hold on. Why wouldn't we have privilege to waive? To waive. We're the client.
No. We're not a client.
Yes, we are.
No, we're getting advice from the city attorney's office.
No, we're getting advice from an attorney that's assigned to us as legal advisor, specifically with an ethical firewall between the task force and the city attorney.
Okay.
So this isn't quote unquote services like provided by the city attorney. This is services provided by the attorney that is assigned to us. So there's no interaction.
But still, why does that make a difference? Who do you think the client is? You said that you think the task force is the client.
That's what we're always told.
But you're giving us, I think, maybe your personal opinion. I believe that the city is the client, and I don't know if we have the authority to waive attorney-client privilege. That's my concern.
Okay, let's let DCA Price Wolf.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mark.
Sure. So to the extent that a document is governed by attorney-client privilege, the task force as a whole, if it wants to disclose that document, must vote to waive the privilege. So the task force is the holder of the privilege. So, in the sense that you guys are all acting in your official capacity as members of the task force, individually, each of you cannot just decide to waive the privilege. It has to be done as a commission. I'm sorry, as a task force. So majority would have to approve that, and then that would constitute waiver. That's how it is for all other commissions and bodies in the city.
So, can I chime in?
Does that make sense? Member Schmidt, did you have another question?
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That might alter my thought on it. Yes. So you're saying that we do have the authority as a task force to waive on that scope of that, I assume, is documents that are task force to city attorney, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Well,
Right. So, like, as an attorney, I can't waive the privilege. I
yeah.
can give you my legal opinion as to whether I think something is privileged, right?
Yeah.
But I can't waive it.
Okay. Are we
It's
a
different
client?
for work product, but anyway. Yeah.
Are we classified as client, the task force itself, as an entity?
Okay, so sorry. Is my connection still working?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, for these purposes, consider yourself the client when it comes to attorney-client privilege.
Okay. Thank
When
you.
I say you, I don't mean Member Schmidt individually. I mean the task force as a body.
Okay.
Okay, Member Highlands.
So, DCA Wolf, I was going to go further down this road, maybe even take a step further back. You know, in my years on the task force, we have sometimes had questions about what we actually are. Are we a body, policy body? What entity are we? So, since we're having this discussion, maybe we should establish what we are, and if what we are deserves to be, are we able to treat that as a client? So I'm going to take that question a step further back, without sliding down a rabbit hole. But I know we've had that discussion. We've had other members of the city attorney's office, not John Cote, but I think it was DCA Givner, who may have opined that we were something other than maybe Chair Wolf can chime in on this, but I just want to make sure that we've covered all our tracks and that we're okay to move forward down this path if we choose that.
So I don't think we need to even go into that discussion of what label you want to put on yourself. I think for purposes of this conversation, you guys are the client, the task force is the client, and you're the holder of the attorney-client privilege, irrespective of what you call yourself.
So the next question is, as the Sunshine Task Force, do we want to? Well, I'll stop right there.
Yeah, the question before us is, shall we waive attorney-client privilege to release the records? The question, now DCA Wolf is claiming that it is attorney-client privilege. The question is are these records, are they actually, the records that are being asked of us, are they actually, part of that? Was it actually advice for a specific issue that the privilege actually holds, or was it just a message that was sent to us? So like a notice, like something is, this is happening. We're not going to be providing these memos anymore. Is that considered to rise to the occasion that would trigger a privilege at that point? That's more of a question I have. We have more people that are in line here to speak. Let's go with Member Wong and then Member Enzi.
I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Thanks, Chair Wolf. So I guess my question is a little bit around precedent. So if we do vote to allow for the release of memos or records, does that mean that that would be the case going forward, or would that be something that's expected of us, or can we do it on a case-by-case basis with these memos or letters
this-
going forward?
This is for the specific records that are being requested by the requester. It doesn't extend to any other records, just the records that are being these particular records that are being asked for.
And Chair Wolf, just reiterate, those are the records from the DCA's office saying they're no longer going to do the memos as before. Is that what we're debating?
Yes. The request is. Hold on.
It'd been nice to have had that attached to the
Well,
agenda.
true.
We received it at some point.
I know I could dig back my email and find it, but I think it was pretty innocuous.
1218.
1218. Thank you.
Cheryl forwarded it to us in 1218.
Thanks.
Right.
Here.
So, yeah. So the question is shall we release those records? And because the reason why there's a flag here is because we're being told by legal counsel that it rises to privilege. We can make that determination of whether it rises to privilege or not too. We're just being told by legal counsel that it rises to privilege. Member Hinsey, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is sort of along those lines through the chair to the DCA. It's your contention that this is privileged simply because it's legal advice, correct? There was nothing in it specifically that would rise to the level of attorney-client privilege, right? It's merely because this is something that is considered legal advice.
Right.
So that's a great question. So I actually think that's sort of conflating a couple of ideas. So anytime there's legal advice from an attorney to a client, that is covered by attorney-client privilege. So there's really no distinction between when you're saying this is merely legal advice versus attorney-client privilege. You see what I'm saying, Member Hensley?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily, so I'll just leave it at that. So, and I take issue with one thing that Chair Wolf said, is that what you're receiving is your legal counsel's advice that something is protected by attorney-client privilege. If the chair or the task force wants to suddenly say they disagree with that, they don't even think it should have applied, just know that you're going against the legal, your counsel's advice to tell you in the first instance it is protected. So
let me follow up with that, DCA Wolf. Is an unsolicited communication from your office considered advice?
Yes, it certainly can be. Absolutely.
Would it need to say on it that this is protected by attorney-client privilege?
Nope.
At the time that it was sent to us, would somebody have to flag it?
No, I mean, it should, just so you don't accidentally forward it and waive the privilege without knowing it. But it doesn't need to yell out and shout and scream, I'm privileged, in order for it to be privileged. It's a good practice for a lawyer to attach that in the header, or usually that's why a lot of these lawyer email footers say, this document may be protected by attorney-client privilege, so on and so forth, but it doesn't need that in order for a document to be privileged by the attorney-client privilege.
So how are we supposed to know at the time that this was covered or even triggered attorney-client privilege?
I think it's safe and fair for you to assume any conversation you have with your attorney is going to be privileged.
Okay, and to the nature of this communication, which everybody knows now because we already have exposed it in many public meetings. Why would that communication be considered a trigger or privilege?
I've already discussed that in confidential emails to the task force. Privileged emails to the task force.
Well, we're asking about it now.
I know, and by discussing it in more detail, I'd be waiving the privilege, and you guys hold the privilege.
Okay, fair enough.
I can't
Member Hood?
Yeah, I guess so we know that this particular email has been requested and we are being asked to waive privilege for this email. If we don't find that objectionable, is there any reason why waiving privilege on this would then lock us into a particular course of action when we receive future similar requests, or is each one handled discreetly and we can say yes on this and no on something else for whatever reason?
Yeah, it's the latter. You're not binding yourself to forever waive the attorney-client privilege. Anytime there's a separate document or issue that comes up, you'd separately have to waive it. There's things like categorical waivers, like the body could, as a whole, decide to categorically waive privilege on certain subjects, but you could also clearly not do that and say just for this document, the task force has considered to waive it just for this document. So the more clear you are, the better protected you'll be going forward.
Thank you.
Sure, great question.
Member Highland, and then Member Hensy. Member Highland? You're on mute.
Apologies. Okay. So looking at the memo and what it's addressing, without getting into details, kind of goes to the charter of what the SOTF is all about. Certainly, getting that ethical firewall legal advice. The memos, I'm trying to dig back into the charter to see if memos were a part of what was promised, 22 years ago or not. I don't think they were. Maybe that's just the style in which they chose to give us that legal advice, or part of the package, and now they're kind of withdrawing that. So I like to dig into that a little bit more. But something that goes to the core of the SOTF charter and how it was all set up, I think that should be in the public domain, because that might inform future discussions and changes, etc. That's just my initial thought on that.
Well, just to respond, let's be clear. The task force is not a charter commission or board or body. So charter doesn't actually, that word, specifically means something here. The second thing is that these these memos that we have been getting since 1999 have been a precedent. There hasn't been any issue for 20 some odd years until now that they would be considered legal advice, to the point of it being privileged. It even hadn't, the discussion, there was no discussion from any of our previous attorneys or the city attorney themselves that the memos were considered privilege until now. But the point here is it's not about, we're not really talking about the actual memos themselves. That is not at issue here. What is at issue here is the communication that we got, that notifying us, the notice that we were not going to receive these memos anymore. That is what is before us today. The actual message that we got, whether or not that should be disclosed to the requester. Now, we're being told by our legal counsel that communication and all the other communications about this are privileged, and that if we wanted to release those records, that we should do so by a vote, because we would be waiving attorney-client privilege at that point. We could have a question as to, okay, of the records that were being requested which records would we consider to be actual direct legal advice, maybe because we had asked some questions or had some discussion with our legal counsel. But what separate that from the actual original or the initial notice that was sent to us. So we could divide, you know, the question at that point.
So
also.
I need to make an important point of clarification,
Yeah.
is that my opinion about what's protected by the attorney-client privilege is just the communication from the city attorney's office to, I think it was an email to Chair Wolf. I haven't reviewed any other, you're saying, I haven't reviewed any other communications that might be amongst task force members about this or anything else. So I don't know the extent any of those might be privileged or not. Because I just want to clarify that, because Chair Wolf has said what's at issue is any communication about this topic. I haven't reviewed any of those. I've only reviewed and seen the particular email from the city attorney's office to Chair Wolf, and I believe maybe SOTF email was CC'd. Do you get the distinction I'm making?
Yes and no.
I just have no idea. Let's say, Chair Wolf, let's say you forwarded that email to other people and had discussions about it. I don't know if those are privileged because I haven't reviewed them, right? They might be privileged, they might not. I just don't know.
Okay.
So to the extent you're saying what you're debating right now is whether any single communication about this topic, we should waive it. What I'm saying is I haven't reviewed every single communication to know whether the privilege exists or not.
I see.
Right.
Okay. I'm trying to separate the actual original notice that was sent unsolicited, and from the subsequent messages between members of the task force, myself, or our office, and yourself. That's what I'm trying to discern.
Right, and all I'm saying is I haven't reviewed any communications that you might have sent, let's say to Dean Schmidt about this that I wasn't CC'd on, or let's say you sent an email to a friend of yours to get advice on it. Like, I just don't know. Those would be considered communications about this topic, but I don't know that those were covered in the first place because of maybe other actions people have taken.
Okay.
I'm happy to review every single email that you think is responsive to this PRA request to tell you whether I think the privilege exists. I'm happy to do that. I just haven't seen those or done that.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, privilege goes beyond just what's written on paper. Privilege goes towards just the mere mention of what is quote unquote being held in privilege. Is that not correct?
No, it takes into account who is doing the talking. So you're not protecting the information itself, but you're protecting a communication between two people. So for instance, like the topic of the communication is what matters and who it's between. So it's not just the topic.
But we've already revealed all that in public session many times. Okay.
And what I'm saying is this particular email contains, I think, whether you claim that, it's been revealed, so therefore the attorney-client privilege can no longer be asserted. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, the only way to waive the privilege is for the board. Sorry, not the board. Is for the task force to waive it.
Well, we had it on our agenda. The agenda was approved to, to have those discussions in public, and we had.
Okay, I'm just going in circles. I think that if there's a particular communication here by an attorney to you that I think is legal advice, that hasn't been waived.
Okay, let's take some more questions from folks. I got Member LaHood, then Member Yankee, and then Member Highland.
So having seen the email in question, I'm inclined to say I think we should waive privilege on this. I do, and I think we are a task force that is about transparency. And I do understand what DCA Price Wolf is saying, that he should look at the other documents that have been requested. And I think that's probably a good policy just to make sure that we know what we're releasing. But unless there's, I would say we should, I would be in favor of tonight, because we know specifically about this one email, in voting to waive, and then as soon as possible having the other documents that have been requested reviewed, and as much as possible waiving on those as well.
Member Yankee?
To start off with, I pretty much, in the same line of thinking as Member LaHood. I think it's important to maybe just so we're all on the same page to actually understand what's being requested. So I'm just going to read it here briefly. And it says, this is a sunshine request to the SOTF and each of you for a copy of the email from, gives an email address from our DCA with the subject update regarding memos and all of its threads, including replies and forwards. I don't believe this at the time was forwarded to the task force back in March when it was sent. It was only sent to Chair Wolf and I think Cheryl and Victor and so forth. But the task force did not get this as a forward, or at least they did. I wasn't on it. I don't think anyone else was either. So I don't think there is actually any subsequent discussion amongst any of us to worry about, unless Bruce talked about it with Cheryl. I mean, none of us would have seen that. So the only email I'm aware of is the original one that's being requested, and I'm in the same mindset as Member LaHood, that I think it's worth disclosing. So I'll leave it at that.
Member Highland?
That's okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Public comment?
Hold on.
I think Member Schmidt is waving his hand.
Go ahead, Member Schmidt.
Yeah. One thing I'm hearing that I'd like to just get a little clarification. It sounds like that this document has already been disclosed outside the attorney-client relationship. You were talking about how the document we're talking about, that we're talking about waiving privilege on, has that been disseminated in any way? Because, okay, I thought I heard Chair Wolf say it's been disseminated. He's talked a couple times, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, is because that dissemination to me would mean that privilege has already been waived by dissemination.
We have had this.
It is not.
Okay, go ahead.
That document itself has not.
Okay, I would ask my question then of Chair Wolf. What is it you were referring to when you said things have been shown already to people? So why are we talking about privilege here? The communication, the original communication to us, it was it was a notice that this particular situation was happening. We weren't going to receive these memos anymore. I then agendized it, put it on the agenda for discussion for the task force, and we've had several meetings about that. And it really is just it's simple as that. Is that we aren't going to receive memos anymore in the way we had been, and that if we needed specific legal advice, that we needed to address it to legal counsel in that kind of way, based on specific subject matter.
Our current legal counsel has reiterated that pretty much that same message to us in public session, in several public meetings that we've had this, at least I would say couple, that we've had this item on our agenda. So now we have a public records request requesting the communications and how this all came about. And that's what we're here to discuss today, is to whether we're being told that this is rises to the point of privilege, and we're meeting here today to determine whether to waive that privilege or not.
Okay, so the issue's been out there, but the document that is privileged, that itself, there's not been a dissemination, it sounds like, from what you're telling me, the document specifically.
The only dissemination has been to the task force, to legal counsel, from legal counsel, and to our administrator.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was trying to figure out, is what you meant by that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, member Yankee.
Yeah, I was just going to, just to clarify that, right, this was not like, this email was not part of the agenda. We did agendize the topic, the general topic, but this specific communication was not included in that agenda, nor was it even sent to the task force back then.
Okay.
So while the general topic of the DCA is not writing memos anymore was discussed, this specific written communication was never made public nor disseminated amongst the task force members back then.
Got it. Thank you.
Member Highland.
Well, I thought I heard you say, Chair Wolf, that we have, since March 2nd, when this was first sent to us, that it has appeared in our agendas.
No, the subject matter has.
Okay. So the title worries me, Update on Memos. Was there any previous communication between us about memos? No. So this was the introductory, out of the blue communication from the DCA's office to us about memos, period. So there's nothing prior to this, right?
Correct.
And I find it interesting that it's not signed. I mean, I don't know if it needs to be, but it's not. It's signed, one of the DCAs from the office of the DCA, as opposed to our legal counsel acting on our behalf. That I found that interesting, but that's maybe not relevant. And then thirdly, the request for this does quote that subject line. So I'm curious, how did the requester get that information? That makes me think that maybe we did release this somewhere, and it is out in the public domain already, which makes this whole discussion perhaps moot. So those are the concerns I have.
Can you repeat the last part of what you just said?
Okay, looking at the December 9th request to us to release this, to waive privilege, it references both the DCA that sent the memo and the subject line of his email. So where did that come from? Have we already released this?
I have no idea, and
I think
I did not forward it to anyone.
Okay,
I can speak to this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I believe what it is that when Cheryl does her administrative report, she lists all the emails she receives by subject line. And so that subject line was in Cheryl's administrator's report, just the subject line, saying that she had received an email with that subject line. And so obviously now the requester is curious to the body of that email. That's how he knows what the subject line is, but not what the body is.
Good.
Yeah, good catch. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Shall we open it up to public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. Cheryl, when you're ready with the clock.
Anonymous here.
Gotcha. And I think there's one more too. Or
Yes,
or
I
two.
wanted to make a public comment.
Okay, great. We'll get you all. Cheryl, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, I just had to go find my timer.
Okay.
Okay, so somebody ready to speak?
I am.
Okay, I think we had Mr. Pilpel had chimed in first about public
I'm happy
comment.
to defer. Let's hear from whoever else. That's cool.
Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, my name's Tom Osley. I had brought a petition before you a few times. There's been multiple hearings. I'm trying to get the transcript from August, and the one on the public website is actually the transcript from July. So the July transcript is up twice.
Excuse me. This is not general public comment.
Oh, okay.
This is public comment on the item that we're discussing right now. So you can hold on for a minute. When we're done with this, we'll call general public comment. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'll wait. Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker.
Pilpel?
Go for it.
Mr. Pilpel was before me. Go ahead.
Okay. David Pilpel. So I understand that the communications at issue, from what I'm hearing, are privileged and that the client holds the privilege. As you've been discussing, there was no attachment to this item tonight, so members of the public, I don't think, can evaluate the issue fairly. I did hear the email request read, but I still haven't seen it actually. And it may be important to see both the text, the date, the context of the actual records request before proceeding. Without having seen either the city attorney communication at issue or the specific records request, I think the issue may turn on two things. One, whether the task force believes that the public interest in disclosure outweighs or significantly outweighs the public interest in non-disclosure in this specific instance, and two, whether waiving the attorney-client privilege in this specific instance might expose the city to any liability. Other issues about the relationship between the task force and the city attorney's office regarding advice, billing, costs, memos, time available to the task force, or anything else are likely outside the scope of the instant request. But again, I haven't seen the actual records request. I just heard it. I can weigh in further if that's helpful to the task force. Just two other points here. I have not spoken to the issue of accidental or constructive waiver. I'm not sure if those apply. And I can explain more about the relationship between the task force and the city attorney's office historically, again, if that's helpful. Thanks.
Next speaker.
Hang on.
Sure.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. It's my request, so I'm going to read it into the record. It was sent on December 9th, 7:30. Hi, I'm anonymous, by the way. It was sent on December 9th to the people mentioned before. The exact words were just read by one of your members into the record. And it did tell you that the administrator's report proved such records existed. I would agree with everything your DCA has told you today, at least he has told you here today, and I would still urge you to waive the privilege. There is a question, I think, whether or not that original email constitutes a confidential communication for the purposes of legal advice. I don't know. Only you know whether it was for the purposes of legal advice or just something like, we don't have enough money to support you anymore. I have no clue actually what it says. And I would like to correct, I believe, one thing that the previous commentator said. It's really, if you're going to look at public interest balancing, and I don't know why you would, but if you're going to do it, it's the other way around. The default is disclosure, and the public interest in non-disclosure must, quote, clearly outweigh the public interest in disclosure. The default is to disclose, and it's the non-disclosure that has to, quote, clearly outweigh the disclosure. I would urge you to release this. The city attorney's office has a legal requirement to support this task force and its duties, just as the clerk of the board also does. And that's defined in the Sunshine Ordinance. So I think we should know. And I mean, I don't know why they stopped giving you memos, really. Maybe the reason is completely innocuous. I actually agreed with someone arguing that they weren't really giving you legal advice or just kind of summarizing things over and over again for you. But I think we should know. And then we can figure out how to improve that situation through either the Board of Supervisors, budgeting, whatever it is. So I urge you to move to waive the any privilege if it exists and to release that one single email. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment on the subject? Okay, seeing none. Members? All good points made. Fits, all are implied in everything that we've been talking about.
Okay, I guess I'll go. I guess I would move then to waive privilege on this document and release it.
Second.
Okay, so let's be specific on the document. The document that with the, as noted in the request?
That's correct.
Okay.
March 2nd document?
Update regarding memos subject line.
Well, it says, update re-memos subject line. There's no other information in the request itself.
Right. March 2nd, 19.
Okay, well, let's not, okay, never mind. The idea here is to discuss what information is already existing that is being asked for, not to reveal additional information until the motion gets approved.
Got it.
Okay, any other discussion, members? Member Hinsey, was that you that I heard?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you just heard me second.
Oh, okay. All right. Are we ready for a vote?
Looks like
Dean Schmidt has his hand raised.
Okay, I can't see him because the way I don't see everybody on the screen because I'm using Microsoft Teams in the browser. It doesn't give me gallery view.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Go ahead, Member Schmidt.
Yeah, I'm not gonna really make an argument, but I'm gonna just say that I'm gonna be a no vote on waiver. I don't feel enough confidence in my in the idea that we can waive, and that's my first reason. And my second reason is that I don't know if I feel that it's a wise action because it would possibly adversely affect our relationship with the city attorney's office. So as a matter of just explaining my vote is going to be no.
Okay. I just want to say that we have lots of respondents that receive legal advice. The ordinance speaks to that legal advice. Whether despite the Grossman versus St. Croix case law, the ordinance does speak to that advice, implied that advice would be kind of general advisory to all of the entire city publicly, that this or that with regards to how to implement sunshine should or should not be done. And it's also implied in the ordinance that the city attorney shall not provide, I don't know what you call it. I guess you call it counsel in a way in these matters, but they would be the official counsel if it went to litigation. So with regards to the administrative process, it's not, they're not actually supposed to act as legal counsel for the purposes of preventing the implementation or the release of records that are supposed to be released. But that they, and in another, on the other hand, it also states that the city attorney is in fact the official legal counsel if it goes to litigation. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but you know, this question it's been applying itself, you know, for every case that we've heard.
Are you, when you mentioned the Grossman v. St. Croix case, are you factoring that in when you say what you're saying, or are you denying that it applies? I personally don't agree with that that opinion. I wouldn't say totally with the opinion, but I think in general, I think the ordinance and the way the voters and the framers had meant it to be, I think that decision goes a little bit beyond. I think the advice for anyone applying this law, which applies to everyone equally, for the same activity, that any advice that's provided to one should be to the benefit for the benefit of all. Well, whether or not I agree with the Grossman court, I'm pretty sure it's the law that applies here. So that's, you know, sure. That's what I have to feel I have to follow. Just hasn't been challenged yet, that's all. Okay, anything else? Are we ready for a vote? Any last thoughts? Okay. Madam Administrator, please call roll.
Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member Hensy?
Aye.
Member Hensy, aye. Member Schmidt?
No.
Member Schmidt, no. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member LaHood?
Aye.
Member LaHood, aye. Member Highland?
Aye.
Member Highland, aye. Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. The motion to disclose the email passes.
Thank you. Okay, call next item.
Hang on a second. Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Sunshine Task Force on matters that are within the task force jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Okay. I'll hand it off to you, Madam Administrator, to manage the clock and get it rolling.
Do we have a speaker? We have our first speaker?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay.
Yes, I would like to.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name's Tom Osley. I was calling because the transcript from August that's available on your website is actually the July transcript. So there's 2 copies of July and no copy of August, and I've been trying to get a hold of that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll correct that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next speaker.
Do we have another speaker?
Anonymous, please. Anonymous.
Go ahead, sir.
First, I wanted to thank you not for what just happened, but actually the conversation I told the board today, and I'm just going to tell it right here as well. And I'll start here. This is what I told the board. So today is a great victory lap for Sunshine. Over the last 1.5 years, I have fought for the public's right to access electronic metadata That means who emailed or texted whom, when did they do so, who received it. And for years, unlike this board and unlike your city peers, San Francisco executive agencies refused to release this information. This morning, Public Works produced for the first time email and calendars in compliance with the law. This took months of the Sunshine Task Force's volunteer research and consultation with departments, and then 5 unanimous, consistent Sunshine orders from October 2019 up through last week. It also took about a year of effort by Chief Information Officer Linda Jarrell and Chief Information Security Officer Michael Maxman, who were willing to directly work with a random anonymous member of the public to improve public access and the information security of the city. And I wanted to thank all of them and all of you. And if you do fight hard enough and long enough, you can defeat the opaque city bureaucracy. It is sad that it takes so much work for sustained change, but the public can do it. And this board, and in this case, I'd say this task force, must support such work. The other comment I wanted to make is right now, the proposed agenda for the compliance committee has 5, I think, Prop G complaints from me. I would urge the chair of that committee to not put those on the agenda and hear someone else's complaints. There's a lot of people who have a lot of a diversity of things that they are fighting for, and delaying my complaints, those ones which are now, the nth Prop G calendar complaints, isn't going to do anything wrong, and I'm sure other people would love to be heard. You have 2 days to finalize that agenda. Please, I don't know who the new chair of the complaint committee is, but it's your decision, I believe, and so please agendize some other complaints. I don't need to be heard. Thank you very much.
Next speaker.
Hang on. Do we have another speaker?
Last call for public comment. Okay, seeing no further public comment, it is closed. Let's call the next item.
Item number 4, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force.
Members?
Just briefly, we touched base. Just do we have enough people? Fiona said she can't be at the complaints committee hearing. Do we have someone in her place?
When is it?
It's next Tuesday, a week from today, at 5:30. Bruce, I thought you had sent an email that you agreed to appear. You accepted an invitation.
I was just going to say I can do it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I have a question. There was just a mention of a committee meeting that has all these Prop G cases, but the speaker, Mr. Anonymous, at one point he said compliance, he said complaint, and I don't know which committee he was referring to. Does anyone know that?
Yeah, it's the next complaints one.
Yeah, I
It's
believe
complaints.
Complaints.
I believe we are the complaints took all the Prop G calendar items, so I believe we are at the Prop G calendar item committee.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know if we can re-calendar it, but we can deal with that at a different time.
Okay. Anything else for the good of this cause? Okay, is there any public comment on anything discussed in this section? Okay, hearing none, public comment is closed. Let's call the next item.
Item number 5, adjournment. I have
Motion
7:37.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Moved by Member LaHood, second by Member Hinsey at 7:37. Thank you very much, everyone. Have yourself a great evening.
Have a good evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.